Welcome everybody. It is not quite coffee time with Hinders. Bit of water this time. Chris has got his serious cricket mug, possibly with a bit of water in. We've got Neil with us. We're going to talk about England cricket, what's been happening, and of course, the fantastic series with New Zealand. It's been a heck of a start.
Well, I think to start with, you've got to go right back to 1st of May. So, a lot of talk about the England Red Bull reset.
True.
1st of May, we had no captain, no coach, no managing director.
Yeah.
So we were a bit of a lost ship.
We were, weren't we?
Rudderless. No captain.
No.
No one steering.
No.
But then all within the space of about 4 or 5 weeks, all these appointments got made. Some probably quite key ones. No pun intended. Rob Key coming in as managing director.
Yeah.
Good decision?
Well, I think you're going to say so far so good. Yeah, I think so.
I think pretty shrewd appointment, to be fair.
Bit left field.
A little bit left field.
I suppose you don't quite know where. You've seen Strauss do it before, and you kind of know the background of what you're going to get. And then you've got Rob Key, who's been quite vocal on his podcasts in the Sky Sports world. So you never quite know how it's all going to fit.
But he's got, a big background in English cricket.
Yeah.
Played for Kent for a long time. Got some international experience. Very good in the media. Got some good thoughts, I think.
Ideas, yeah.
So we've got to give that a tick to start with.
Yeah.
You talked about left field. We've interestingly, I think Stokes got appointed as captain and head of the coach being named.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, I think he did.
I think Stokes was always going to be a fairly obvious pick from anyone coming in.
First person to ask.
I don't think everyone would be unanimous in terms of agreeing it was the right pick, but I think it was going to be the obvious pick from the group of players to select from. And as we've just said, with a fresh approach from someone like Rob Key, I don't think that pragmatism that potentially we've had in English cricket at the top end for a number of years, we were going to go somewhere different. And I think Stokes fits that bill very much.
Well, I think at that point, most people were probably saying he's almost the only option. If you were picking a test team at that point, who's guaranteed to be in it, and Stokes is going to be on the team sheet every time. So I don't want to hark back to a comparison to Mike Brearley, because he's certainly not that. But you're not going to pick your captain just based on who's getting the team
the worry is,
in this era.
No.
But the big worry there is with someone like Stokes is you very quickly start to think back to great all-rounders who have the burden of captaincy of Botham, of Flintoff, of somebody who is a guaranteed pick, who is your match winner, bat or ball, or potentially in the field.
Yeah.
And then you throw the captaincy in there as well. The worry is always going to be far too much.
Can you still be brilliant with the next bit?
Yeah.
So then going even more left field, McCullum's announced as coach. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, see, I like that. I like it. Again, for him, he's probably looking at that going, white ball, don't want to get tagged with white ball. If you're ever going to do anything different, which is what he's then come out and said, England cricket being strong is good for the game of Test cricket. And that's been the super important thing. And he's obviously got on board with that. There's no doubt about it. Having Stokes as captain has got to have been a real sort of key point for him to go, yeah, I think that's the right thing for me to do. And he has played a lot of cricket. He's played a lot of Test cricket. He's captained a lot of Test cricket. And I do think coaching is a lot about, as we do, is a lot about, have you captained sides? Do you know how to manage? Do you know how to run a game? Well, if you've captained a side, you've probably done quite a lot of that already. So...
Yeah, I think it was a very shrewd move by him. I think it was left field that not a lot of people would have expected that decision.
Yeah.
But from his point of view, he's probably looking at that and thinking, right, England really far down in the Test rankings here. Do I want the Test job where England are so far down but have got so much room to grow, or do I want the ODI job where they're already at the top of the tree and can realistically only come back down?
Yeah.
So from a job role point of view on your CV, you're going to go with the Test squad because you can make some improvements. And I think he also backed. He knows he's got players in there that can turn it around for him. which we're probably going to get onto and discuss.
No, definitely.
So going into the first test then, we've got new managing director, new coach.
Well, before we get there,
captain.
what about Mott as ODI, as we were on the coaches?
We're talking about left field.
Well,
potentially that really is
That's so far
under
left.
the radar a little bit.
Well, I'm going to stop you there. That's so far left field that's out of the Red Bull reset. You've gone left. You've gone into,
We've gone into white.
You've gone into white.
We've gone full circle.
Out of red. So I think that's a discussion for another time.
Oh, sorry, ladies and gents. You'll have to wait on
Too
that
many
one.
runs scored in that series.
Yeah, let's do it.
Where do you start? So let's stick to Test cricket.
Go on, then.
That's really what we're going to have a chat about now. Is we've gone into that first Test at Lords with the optimism of an English nation, thinking it's all going to get turned around now. We've had a change of personnel. Go into that first Test, and low totals early on in both innings. To be fair. For me, a big turning point in the second innings when New Zealand were doing well. Broad took 3 wickets in an over, I think it was. Not a hat-trick. But for me, the Grandhome run out started to show where we were as a fielding unit, as a team. We were just thirsty and hungry and chasing those wickets down. I think Colin was probably on a different planet at the time. He's wandered out of his ground.
Yeah.
Thinking he's
LB.
Survived an LB,
Yeah.
and then suddenly he's run out. You don't often see that. Not at Lords.
No.
And it is a fantastic photo, isn't it, where you've got keeper, first, second, third slip who've all gone up, or all pretty much off the ground. But Pope, as you say, as a switched on player who's tuned in, who's keen to make an impact. Dare we say he's probably potentially not a guaranteed player in that first Test, who's actually switched on enough to recognise the opportunity and take it.
Yeah, at that point he's probably not. But look, more interestingly, I think is your bowl. You've suddenly got reunited your bowling attack of Broad and Anderson.
Yeah.
Who've come back into that Test. We've got to talk probably about Potts at some stage. How well has he done?
Now's a really good opportunity because for 3 Tests, but before that we didn't really know much about him. He's taken 35 wickets, I think it was, before he played his first class wickets, before he's played his first Test match, and suddenly we're all looking at him going, well, that's really quite good. You bowled quite well in the first Test. Can you back it up in the second? Oh, heck, you did. Can you back it up in the third on another flat wicket and bowled absolutely brilliantly? Could have got more wickets. Bowled really good areas, moved it, got Williamson out.
A lot.
Well,
That's true. Yeah.
The tone of the series has started because the first innings, I think they were 36 for 6.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I was on a cricket pitch at the time, and parents are listening to the radio. Everyone's got Test match special on. Everyone's getting excited. Oh, the new era's started. They're 6 down. I think they posted a low total, but then in reply, we post a low total back, and then suddenly everyone's thinking, here we go
same
again.
old story.
Same old. England's batting, going to let them down again. And I mentioned that turning point with Broad's 3 wickets, and what was really good to see, I think for him, he's a crowd pleaser, and we've now got crowds back.
Yeah.
You've got to remember, we haven't had crowds for the last couple of years. He really bought into that. We've got the crowd going. We bowled them out, but we're still set 279 to win. Now, normally, as were a lot of probably the media and a lot of the general public thinking, 279 is a big arse for not getting that. But out comes Joe Root. You mentioned about the burdens of captaincy.
Yeah. They've been all unloaded.
Has that now gone the other way?
Well, I mean, Joe Root's batting record as captain was still phenomenal.
Yeah. True.
However, you could argue that without that, he's looked a different person. Maybe not so much just the cricketing side, but in terms of himself, in terms of that Joe Root that was perhaps there pre-captaincy, he's gone back to that sort of persona. Hardly ever see him without a smile on his face, batting, fielding, whatever it might be. And he's taken his game quite clearly even further to another level.
Well, he's an absolute run machine, isn't he? I mean, let's face it.
Lovely player to watch as well. I mean, that second innings was some beautiful, beautiful batting. He played really, really well.
To me, that was sort of almost pure Test cricket at that point.
Yeah.
He's gone out, he scored his 100, we win the game, and if you look at the post-match interviews, he's very much talking about trying to support Ben Stokes as captain, doing everything he can do possibly to help support Ben and the way he wants to play moving forward. So for me, the first Test was, we've got off to a good start.
Yeah.
And that's important, isn't it?
It is important to try and get new momentum.
Yeah.
But is that a one-off? I don't think we've seen... There's a bit of talk of the new era and the new brand. I don't think we really saw it in the first test. But we're 1-0 up and we're off to Trent Bridge.
I think we saw some bits. We saw the starting elements of it. So Root's ability to go at quite a quick pace in the chase. Also, they got there the last day, didn't they? Before the new ball, knowing that the new ball was going to be really difficult, and they took that opportunity to get there that little bit quicker.
Well, and in doing so, the nicest touch for those people out there that went to that final day,
yeah. Wasn't that brilliant?
What a touch that was, getting a free refund because he did it inside the 15 overs that constituted a refund. So I think everyone was in a good mood leaving there and heading to Trent Bridge. So second test, we're under this new regime. Public are starting to build interest again, I think, which is great. And, England... that got criticised quite heavily. I think Ben won the toss in that game and chose to put New Zealand in, and then they racked up 533. And at that point, everyone's on the back of Ben Stokes a little bit, saying wrong decision. But as the game
unfolds, that was one of those incredible games, wasn't it? And in a way, you almost ask yourself, was the toss slightly irrelevant? Was it just some fantastic performances that have made that test match? Because New Zealand have batted well, and the Mitchell Blundell show has continued on again from Lords. They've put together a really good score.
Minus Williamson as well, who was COVID hit. Take out, in theory, their best player, and suddenly they post their best score and bat very, very aggressively.
Yeah.
So that probably caught us a little bit on the back foot, I'd imagine, as well.
Yeah.
So bearing that in mind, absolutely, I think.
The pitch was flat, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was lovely. It was great for Test cricket.
You want to bat on that.
Yeah.
And Pope suddenly does. And Root again.
Yes.
So we've got to give a little mention to Pope here. Again.
Well, that's our number 3, isn't it? He's been backed from the outset. So it's Anderson, Broad. I want you back. I want Ollie Pope as my number 3. Right? Okay. Fine.
And he's very much come out and said that makes a big difference to his psyche.
Yeah.
Knowing the captain and the coach have both publicly come out and said, "You're straight in. You're straight at 3. We rate you.
Get on with it."
You've got a bit to prove. However, we think you can do it, and we think you can do it there.
Yeah.
That's a big statement. Somebody who's never batted really in that position in first-class cricket, however good his record is at Surrey, but he's got a very different game plan there to have to kind of deliver at.
Yeah.
But knowing that actually you're backed by the top 2 players, and the top 2 people, within the camp, and you're going to get a bit of a run-up at it. It's good for him to then, quite early on, get a really good one, as you say, on a flat track, where you'd hope your number 3 is going to cash in. But to do that, I think under that quite a lot of pressure was quite telling of the new way of playing, or the new culture and what have you. I think that was quite a good signpost of it.
Still against some good cricketers too. Bond and Southey are world-class cricketers. But New Zealand missed 2 blokes in that game. Well, they didn't in that game, did they? So Jameson was part injured in that game, and then did a little bit and then didn't. And he's a big miss for them, because he is a world-class fast bowler. Can mix it with... he can bowl short balls, he can bowl good Yorkers, he can bowl length, he can swing it. He's really, really awkward. The one place I think they have missed a trick is they've picked this bloke.
Bracewell.
And they should have gone Patel.
The other way.
Because I think they should have gone... It's a bit like us, because that's the thing we would have done. We would have gone, do you know what, we'll play a part-timer who can bat a bit ahead of a genuine spinner. Well, now we've picked a genuine spinner who just... Well, he looks like us when he bats, doesn't he? It's like, boom, defends. It's like, oh, I'm quite happy to be out here. Thanks, lads.
Test 90, to be fair to him.
Yeah, good point. Okay, sorry, Jack.
Well,
anyway,
and a 1 not out.
I think just coming back to where you got to with Pope, though. I mean, what that certainly did was not only give him the confidence, but it then gave, and I thought this is when you really started to see the change of regime when Stokes came in, and he's just charging everything. He's
Yeah.
going at it like it's a T20 game, because we've got big runs on the board from the top end of the order. For our first time, our middle order can come in with runs already on the board,
Yeah.
and suddenly, he's gone up, I think 46 off about 30 odd balls,
Yeah.
and he's charging the opening bowlers, and
Yeah.
and straight away you thought, am I watching Test cricket? Am I watching the IPL here?
Absolutely.
It's just they're wearing white.
Yeah.
And at that point, we started to get real momentum. We then set, we then do well again, bowling them out, but we're still chasing 299 in the final innings to win the game of cricket.
And on a warm wicket that's turned, doing a bit more, doing a lot more.
And in theory, you'd say, well, there's not enough time. From the old approach.
Yeah.
But we're not in the old approach anymore. No. We're in, how many runs do we need? How many overs have we got? Okay.
What's our run rate?
Let's take 10 overs off of that and let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And, that was just great viewing that second innings again. And for me, that was when there really was a shift change of, this is the style and brand of cricket we're going to play. We're going to be positive. We're going to be proactive. If there's a chance of a win, even if it's only a 10% chance of a win, we're going for that 10%. Yeah. All other results, not interested in.
Yeah.
We're just going for that win. Whatever the realistic possibilities of that are.
Yeah.
But as soon as a win doesn't become possible, okay, we might claw it back, but we're not even thinking of that to start with. It's all about winning the game.
Yeah. And I think that'll be the interesting one when time and test matches evolve under this regime. Well, is there going to be another thought process? So far, we've had things.
It's like anything. It's very easy when everything's going well.
Yes.
And we'll come to the third test in a minute. But you've got this new brand, and you're playing attacking cricket, and you're going for it, and you're setting new records, and that's brilliant when it's working. If that's the route you're going to go down, the
precipice is the drop off. It
is when games don't go right for you,
yeah.
And you've come charging down the wicket and you've missed it and you're stumped and you look silly and you've tried to reverse sweep off the quick bowlers over the slips, and that's not worked. Yeah. Then what happens to the camp? Do they stay strong enough to continue that style of play?
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to, the only thing I can relate that to is ironically the ODI team of. Yeah. Where we reached a bit of an all-time low several years ago, going out early in the World Cup, and it was all about, right, we're going to go hard at everything. We're going to score 300's the new par in ODI cricket. We're going to be pushing that up to 350 every time by attacking from ball one. And when it works, it's brilliant, but it just didn't quite work at that point. Whereas it does now, because we've got so good at it.
Yes.
Because we've had time to keep going at it. So I hope that Ben and his team get given the time.
Yeah.
That when they do lose games, they will lose a couple of test matches along the way. We're going to play some good teams. And hopefully the style of cricket won't then get criticised.
Yes.
Because we're all quite happy at the moment because it's going amazingly well.
You and the key to that is you have to back players to buy into that, because we've probably all sat in dressing rooms where people have gone, right, I'm going to go for it, and full well they don't quite believe that. You kind of go, well, actually you're half-heartedly going for it here. We can't quite get that 100% buy-in, because you also know if you chase a wide one and nick off early, or get yourself in and still go and you then nick off early, potentially someone else is then looking after your spot next week. And at test level, you're going to have guys who are fearful of going ultra aggressive, ultra positive, but also in the back of their mindset, historically, okay, if I get out playing that way, someone else is perhaps going to take my spot. The new culture of taking the fear factor potentially out of those cricketers to say, just go and perform. We know you're all very good. We all know you're at this level for a reason. Let's take the fear factor away. Don't worry if you get out that way. I'm backing you. And I don't just mean that as a soundbite. I mean that in reality, because actually you're not going to lose your place by that. And perhaps we'll come to talk about it at the end, but Crawley's perhaps a working case in point of that. Yeah. We know you can play. We're backing you to play a certain way. It hasn't quite worked for you yet, but we're backing you. Well, that's quite key for us to, as you say, maintain that test after test after test, with the results potentially not always going our way.
But the players also need to have that ability and be able to to play in that way.
Absolutely,
too.
and that's
at that level.
And then so we go into that third test, and things are, it's all rosy in the England camp all of a sudden, and then chasing 3-2-9, and interestingly we're batting second again, and we're 56 for 6. Now at that point, the thought process of, I'm interested to see what the win predictor is at that point. But it must be like 2%.
I might have had a fiver on it or something, maybe.
Yeah. Can't be many games of like at 56 of 6 chasing 3-2-9 in the first dig. Oh yeah, we're right in this, boys. But I guess then what followed was that Johnny Bairstow. You go back to that freedom, playing with unbelievable freedom and playing with unbelievable talent. To go out and deliver in that way. And mention's got to go to Overton for his support in that. It's not just support. I mean, 97 on debut.
Yeah.
And maybe going up another level is to pick him in the first place. Because potentially Jamie Overton might not have been a go-to pick for a lot of watchers of England cricket. Yes, he's moved to Surrey, he's got a few wickets, but potentially he may not have been the first cab off the rank, as they sort of say, in terms of another pick. I know we've got a lot of injuries in that fast bowling, but fair play to the Keys and the McCullums and the Stokes who've got their head around actually picking someone who may not be left field, but potentially somebody who's perhaps off the radar slightly, and backing him to come in, maybe not so much do the job with the bat, but quite clearly to give him again that freedom of go and express yourself.
And it came off. Yeah, it came off. So you're going into that final innings, still chasing 296. So these are 3 big run chases.
Yeah.
And we're just knocking these off now at a canter as if we do this for fun. 296 isn't enough.
Yeah.
Now, is it good play? Is it good wickets? Is it poor New Zealand bowling? Is it captaincy decisions? I mean, is it becoming common that we can do that? Or is that like a freakish one-off?
Momentum and belief and all the buzzwords that you can perhaps throw at it. But I think in sport, either positively for you or negatively, you get on a winning habit, you get on a losing habit. That momentum, certainly when you're going the right way, kind of carries you at times. And you get on a nice momentum. And the opposition, I don't think bowl poorly, but sometimes they can bowl really well and good balls are going for 4. Nicks aren't carrying. Inside edges are not hitting off stump. They're going past the keeper for 4 runs. You just seem to gain that momentum. And I think a lot of that has come through the series, and the crescendo probably was that final sort of chase where we just, 3 down, chasing 300 and made it look so simple and could have, in theory, chased far more.
And so then I do think it starts to come back to what's your leadership team, who are your senior people in that camp. And when you look at Stokes and McCullum, and lots made about them being similar types of individuals, similar types of character, similar approaches to how they play the game.
Yeah.
And they are both all in, win-win, at nearly, not all costs, but as we've said a few times already in this chat, win is the only option. Really, that's what we're playing for. Then if we have to consider a draw, we'll do that when the win option is totally off the table.
Yeah. And
I think that you're going to get more and more of that. I mean, Joe Root, player of the series, scored 300s.
Yeah.
In a 3 test series, and you've got another bloke, Johnny Bairstow, who scored the same amount of runs, 390 odd. He's averaging 78. But interestingly for me, that 390 odd runs, strike rate of over 120. Now, you don't ever talk about strike rates in Test cricket because it's
not the done thing.
It's not a done thing. It's not the way you play Test cricket. But to score that amount of runs across a period of time at a strike rate of 120,
it's phenomenal.
Shows you where we've got to.
And I think Bairstow's a really good example of perhaps this new regime and where they're taking players. Bairstow's played 80 odd Test matches, and had a great winter in terms of scoring runs. However, first Test match, Harry Brooks averaging 100 and something in the Championship and was the must pick him. He's the form batter. We're going into a new summer under new captaincy. Let's bring some freshness in. Brooks the player, bat him at 5 where he backs for Yorkshire. It's a no-brainer. And quite clearly the camp have gone, no. Bairstow is our lad. He's quality. we're backing him to make a real difference and actually another chapter of his career to really cement a place. A bit like that Pope conversation, they backed him, given him a role, given him a responsibility in that side to score quickly. Know he can do it, and he's gone off and had an absolutely phenomenal 3 Test matches.
Well, I think there's a couple of things, definitely a couple of things to pick up on that point. I think that I've seen Stokes has come out in the media and said, he hopes that teams in the county championship can reflect and play the way England have played in these last 3 games, because that's what he wants to see from the first class game, because he wants to be picking players that can then come up and play in the style and the fashion that he wants them to. Yeah. And that is aggressive, attacking, win at nearly all costs cricket. So I think you'll start to see people, if they've got aspirations to play for England, then they have to start to fit the mould. I'd like to think you'll start to see teams in the championship that are thinking, right, well, that's how you... If we want to win the championship, we've got to go and play some exciting attacking, cricket. I think one other thing that's probably helped Bairstow, and the team as a whole, I thought playing Folkes as a specialist keeper,
take him away from that role, give him
just probably helped the mindset slightly of Johnny. That's your role in the team. Go and bat, and just bat.
And he's been doing that for a while now. So he started in Sydney. When he got his opportunity, got runs, possibly may have been before that, but got runs in that series towards the end. One of the only batters that did particularly well for himself, and then has carried that forward. But I think overall, New Zealand they've peaked with their ICC Test Championship cycle. They're now it's the little things, isn't it, that always become difficult once you've got to the top, and now staying there is really difficult. And they've got 2 wonderful bowlers in Southey and Bolt. They've got a very good structure of how they play, which is they've got some good batters, solid batters, generally score good runs. Latham and Williamson are the usual 2 that you see scoring runs. You've got Jameson bowling, and that added dimension in that 4-year cycle was so helpful. But the one thing they do miss is the spinner. When you watch them in the Test Championship, I think India and New Zealand would, if they could have played somewhere, you'd liked it to have been a little less like a New Zealand sort of set of conditions, because it swings and seams and does bits and brings them into play. Not that it didn't with India, because they've got some good seamers, but Ashwin wasn't quite so big a part to play because of that. So I think from their perspective, plus they've made, they've had a few out. Williamson COVID. They didn't have Nichols at the start of the series. So Conway was dropped from 1 to 4. They've had some issues in terms of... They have. And you just kind of think it's been a good time to play them. We, of course, have been going forwards with breath of fresh air, real change. And you've seen, and I thought Kane Williamson was really interesting in the way that he used the word counter-attack in his press conference yesterday. He said they've counter-attacked really well. Now, to get the chase at Lord's, maybe not necessarily counter-attack in the way we'd think it to be, but they just went faster.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to see moving forward. I think the other thing within that New Zealand team is that they were in good positions in all 3 Test matches. So it weren't like we were dominating the Test matches at any point. They were in good positions. Even at the halfway stage of most of the games, they were in a good position. So it will then be interesting, and we did counter-attack well. And interestingly for me, we were batting second in every game. So it's almost the case of, right, whatever you set us, we're going to go and chase. And we're going to go and chase it at 6 and over, because that's how we play now. I think it'd be really interesting to see what happens when we bat first in some games. How good we are at then going and setting a total, and our bowlers then coming backing us up and taking wickets to win the match, which we've not seen.
I feel quite confident about us going for it with the ball because of the way we have been, like the second innings at Lord's. I mean, the field, Jimmy Anderson on his Tailenders podcast said, I'm bowling without a backward point. I'd have done that before in my life. Where's that come from? But the ball squirts there, and it might only go for 1, but I'm going to have to lose a wicket-taking catcher or a boundary stopping fielder that then brings in these other catchers. So I think from that perspective, and now of course we've just seen Leach bowl really well.
And that's exactly what I was going to say in terms of that mindset of winning a game with your bowlers on a fourth innings, and Leach then in your test match going 4 or 5 days potentially then has that different mindset of, okay, I'm now expected to potentially take 4 or 5 wickets on the final day as a spin bowler with potentially a wicket that's going to do a bit for me. That's a very different expectation than being a first innings, third innings bowler. But he's had a phenomenal series from his perspective in terms of being that number one spinner, given a chance. Yeah. He didn't probably have a great start by being carried off in the first couple of overs of the first test match. To come back from that concussion and then take 10 wickets in the final test match, his journey's probably, like Bairstow, probably been as interesting in terms of the new regime and feeling loved and backed and given great opportunity to be that number one spinner now for a period of time. Be interesting to see how he goes. India coming up next in terms of how they play him. That could be an interesting one-off game that could define a little bit of where he goes.
Well, I think if you're going to be a successful test playing side, you need a world-class spinner.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. A, you need him to take the wickets, and B, you need him to bowl lots of overs. So your seamers are running in 5, 6 over decent bursts of good, quick, fast bowling. And if they've been able to rest a bit because you've got Leach or whoever at the other end bowling 15 over, 20 over spells, then great. So wrapping up New Zealand there, we're really optimistic. We've obviously we've got to have ticks in the boxes of coach, captain and MD at the moment because they haven't done anything wrong.
No.
They've brought this new brand, this new attacking style of play into our cricket, freed up a few players in terms of mindsets, backing them, go and deliver, and they've shown faith in them and they've delivered back. So we've got momentum. We are at home, so we've got natural surroundings. We're now going to go into a one-off match against India.
Yes.
How are we going to go in that?
Well, I think this is where it suddenly. I think the whole summer is really interesting because we don't know. It's so unknown. But I think India will present us with some really interesting tests because they've just watched us play for 3 games and they're now going to know a lot more about us. Whereas I feel like we caught New Zealand a little bit and they went, well, hang on a minute, how's all this happened? And they've got caught up in the whirlwind. India is certainly not. They're going to have been watching from afar and now a little closer because they're over here. So I think that'll be interesting. I think the way that they play the spinner will be very interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know if Jadeja is here, but it'll be interesting to see how they could play Ashwin. The counter-attacking bit with our middle order of Bairstow and Stokes, really, it's a bit like Gilchrist in the Australian times and the way the West Indies boys batted. You know, if they got on a roll, they didn't just get on a roll a little bit. They just went, right, well, I'm now whacking it.
Yeah. And
I don't care what happens because we've got 4 fast bowlers and we're going to throw them at you. Good luck. So I feel like you're almost starting to provide a bit of a structure to what you're likely to see. Good, solid wicket keeper, looks really good with the gloves, takes...
He scores some valuable runs as well.
And he's a good batter as well.
That's often underrated. He can come and he's solid.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like...
We're going to win, is that what you're saying?
I think... Well, I'm going to go yes straight away because how can you not back us? We're 3 from 3.
Chris, what are you saying?
Flying.
I think, as I said earlier, I think momentum in sport, and especially at top end sport, is a big thing. And I think the fact that there's quite a short now gap between 3 tests and another one straight on the horizon, I think makes us favourites. I think home conditions makes us probably favourites. India perhaps being underpowered a little bit. Yeah. They've had a couple of 2-3 day game against Leicestershire where they've got a little bit of practice under their belt. Is that going to be enough to come up against a team that's in theory going hell for leather? You never know in a test match, and then India are very, very good. So I think if I was going to plump for a side, I'd go England at the moment. I don't see many changes. I think the side pretty much picks itself. injury or illness allowing. I think Folkes is
COVID still, isn't he?
So Billings may be coming in there as a like for like as he did obviously the final part of the third test, but I think otherwise, I think they're backing the same players. They're backing Crawley. They're giving him another go up the top, and they just say to the rest of the lads, just keep going on the momentum. I think if they maintain that, I think I can see England winning.
Be interesting to see what go on then. What do you think, Baz?
I think very similar. Probably, I think we've got some momentum.
Yeah.
I think it must be so hard to almost fly in, play one test match, and fly out again. The motivation levels there.
Where are they?
Where are they? We're a bit pumped. We're quite. You know, so you got to back us for a win there.
Yeah.
The way we're playing. Like I said earlier, one thing I think is worth mentioning before we wrap this up. I thought one thing that, and cricket often gets criticised sometimes for the quirkiness of it and how we go about the game, but I thought that the administrators, shall we say, at Trent Bridge, letting everybody in for free on that final day, for knowing it would be a full day.
Yes.
That, for me, just had the vibes of 2005.
Yeah.
When cricket was on Channel 4 at the time and the whole country felt like you were behind cricket.
Yeah.
I felt that day was a real shift change back in the game.
Absolutely.
And parents that
With
we
the public,
talk to,
yeah.
the public,
Yeah.
the customers that come in, there's a
Did you see it?
there's a sense of let's get behind the
Euphoria.
game again, and there's a real passion of following English Test cricket again.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that it's not only the players that are taking that momentum into the India game. I think that the spectator watching, the media, the administrators in the game, everyone that supports and follows it, have got something they're really proud to now support and watch.
Yeah.
And that can only be good for the game
Yeah.
in terms of, again, we're only going back a few weeks, but a lot of talk about unsold tickets at Lords and now it's like, well, there's a reason to go and watch this team.
Yeah.
So I don't mind parting with my hard-earned money because it's a spectacle now.
Yeah.
So I think for the game itself, I think we've really moved massively forward in 5-6 weeks. I do think you're going to have to give people time, players, coaches, management alike.
Yeah.
They're 3 games into what will hopefully be a 4-year, 5-year span of things. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. We know that with English cricket. So let's just all make sure we're still backing the boys and the team. If when we're on a high at the moment, great. Let's maintain that. But there'll be times where it doesn't quite come off. But if that's the way we think is the right way to go about things for the next period of time, then let's back them and see where we get to. So, look. It's been good catching up on the series, but more importantly, I think that change in regime, that new dynamic, that feel of English cricket is suddenly got exciting again. Tune in, let's watch the India game. Let's hope we're all right and it's a win for England.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be a brilliant game. I think we fly by the seat of your pants, and I think if they join in the ride as well, we're in for something quite special.
Could be great. So keep out for more videos. If you've liked this chat that we've had today, make sure you click over there and subscribe. Comments, only the good ones, please. We have got thick skin, but not always that thick.
No.
Go well, England, in the next game.